So good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining me today, nice and early on a Monday morning, for our Gradescope 101 workshop, Making Grading Fast and Fun. For today's session, I'm joined by some colleagues of mine. So I have Michael Ryan, who also works with me on the Professional and Education Services team. And I have Jess Shanahan, who works on our Gradescope Customer Happiness team. My name is Nick Wallace, and I work, as I mentioned before, on the Professional and Education Services team. So before we get started, if you do have any questions throughout, please use the Q&A box in Zoom. That allows Michael and Jess to go through and answer any questions that you have. And if there's anything that we don't get a chance to answer during the session, we can follow up with you afterwards there. But please do not use the chat or the raise hand, just those questions into the Q&A. So before we get started and dive into having a look at Gradescope, up here on the screen, we've got some information for you. So if you do not yet have a Gradescope account and you would like to create one, you can do that just by going to the Gradescope website, so gradescope.com. And then in the top right-hand corner, you'll see a sign up button. If your institution already has Gradescope and you are integrating with your learning management system, that process has already been done for you, so you won't need to go through and create that account. In Gradescope, we have a lot of help resources available for you as well. So you've got a couple of different options of accessing help. If you go to our website, gradescope.com, you'll see that there's a help section on there as well. Or if you prefer something a bit more direct, the direct link, you can just go to help.gradescope.com. That will have our getting started videos and our help guides there as well. If you can't find something or you've got a specific question that you would like to ask, you can feel free to get in touch with Jess, who works on our customer happiness team at Gradescope. And his email address, or the team email address, is help@gradescope.com. As well, we also run weekly workshops, and we run these on Thursday afternoons, 2 p.m. Melbourne time, or Australian Eastern Daylight Time. And if you would like some more information on those, feel free to jump to the workshop website. So you can access that at info.gradescope.com/get-started-workshops. And Michael, can I just get you to pop that into the chat for me, please? And when you go to that page, you'll be able to see that there are webinars for different regions, and you'll find the ones that my team runs under the Australia and Oceania section on that website. And when you register for one of those workshops, you'll receive a calendar invitation and an email, and that will have the links to join into the sessions. And in those sessions, they're a bit more training focused, so we dive into the product a little bit deeper than we will today. So Gradescope is a product that can help you to deliver paper-based assessments and mark those paper-based assessments as well. And we also support things like online quizzes, but we'll dive into that a little bit later and show you what that's like. But before we do that, I'd like to talk about some of the challenges that educators face with grading. And up on the screen here, you can see, there's all it takes is a Google search to find out what instructors and what educators hate about grading. It's tedious, they hate doing it, it takes too long. But it is a really essential part of, the education process and the process that we go through, delivering and teaching content to students. We need to understand if they have, actually learnt the content that we've taught them. And, in a lot of instances, we're able to tell that, has a student grasped that the content that we've taught them or the topics, just by the conversations we might have with students or the interactions. But, a lot of the time we need evidence to be able to accurately do that. And that's where, we tend to deliver assessments, so the students will complete it, and then we'll go back through and grade. But, as we can see here, it's a very tedious process and it can be quite challenging. So there's a few different ways that we can approach grading. And there's a couple methods here on the screen, and these are to do with paper-based assessments. We might deliver a quiz in class or a test or a practical lab or something like that. So ideally, and with method 1, we would like to go through and grade one problem at all time for all of the students. So we'll go through and we'll grade all of question 1 for the 20, 100, 1,000 students we've got in the class. And there's a couple of reasons why we do this. It can help to improve the consistency and the fairness in the grading, but it is really time consuming. And there's lots of page flipping going on, paper shuffling, papers get missed, and it can just be a really hard process to go through and do it that way, despite all of the benefits that it can give us. Method 2 up on the screen there is to go through and grade all of the answers for the first student, and then move on to the second student, and then move on to the third student. So something like this is a little bit faster, but there are some problems with that. And it comes to things like consistency in grading. When you first start grading, quite consistent, but because you're not focusing on all of the, all of question 1 for all the students and then question 2, by the time you get to 20 students, 50 students, 100 students, you start to kind of miss, how you've graded in the past. So method 3, start with method 1, despair how long it takes to go through and grade the first answer. And you forget the consistency, and then you just switch back to method 2 so we can just go through and get grading done as quickly as possible. Another problem we have when grading is that consistency is actually really hard. And there can be a lot of thought and time going into how to calculate a grade for an answer. So if you look at the first little graphic there, first student, they sort of knew what they were doing, but they used the formula incorrectly. So, on my rubric that I'm grading with, it might not be an 8 or it might not be a 6, but, is it a 7? Okay, we'll give them a 7. But then we move on to another student who might make or give a similar answer. But, does a 7 really capture that level of achievement? Maybe it's a 7.5, or is it a 7.6? And then we go to the next student, and they've given a very similar answer again, but there's something slightly different. So then we go, do they want a 7.575? Is that fair? Have they demonstrated what we want them to do? Or is it 7.58493? And, it can get to, start really nitpicking answers, and it can be really, really hard to grade consistently. And it takes a long time. And we often find that, students who might be at the start of, the list or the papers that I'm going through and grading, that, they're getting some really good feedback and I'm quite consistent, good job, nice work, well done. And then we move on to the second hour of grading, and then we start screaming because the students aren't doing what we're wanting them to do. We get a bit tired when we're grading. How can the students miss this content? We've delivered it, I've tried to teach it in 20 different ways, they're still not grasping it. And then by the 6th hour, you've graded that much, you don't care anymore, you just want it to finish. And then by hour 20, you'll be, a little bit worried about how everything's gone. And because grading can be such a time-consuming process, that it can be a really long time between the students finishing their assessment and then giving them the feedback and the grades on that assessment there as well. So by the time you go through and you've graded, 100 students, 200 students, 500 students, that's not an easy task. That takes quite a while. And, it could be a week, 2 weeks, even a month after you're able to give the students the feedback. And by that time, they've probably forgotten about it. They are not thinking about that exam anymore. They're moving on to that next, topic or moving on to the next idea. So this is where Gradescope was developed for to try and solve all of these problems. So Gradescope can really help with reducing the time it takes to grading, increase consistency in grading, but also help you deliver really rich feedback to students about how they've gone in a short amount of time, but also to give you some really in-depth statistics and analytics so that you can kind of understand, are you teaching, content well? Is there, areas that we can improve on, or is there content that I might need to go back and reteach? So that's where Gradescope was developed. So it's one place to grade all student work. So things like exams, homework, code, and online assessments. All types of assignments can be student uploaded. So you can give students, a PDF that they fill out, and then they can upload it to Gradescope, or they can print it out, or you can upload it as well. You can use it with your existing assignments. So you don't need to go through and recreate your assignments to a specific format. If you've got the PDF of what you normally printed out and gave to students, you can use that same PDF to deliver the assessment. And works with both paper-based and digital or online assessments. So as I mentioned before, give the student the quiz in class, and then they can give it back to you, and you can upload it to Gradescope, or the student might sit the exam at home or the quiz at home, and they can upload it into Gradescope as well. So down the bottom, we've got kind of the general workflow of Gradescope. So either the student or the instructor submits their work, so they can be uploaded by PDF or photos of their work. The instructor or the educator or the marker would then go through and grade submissions. And in doing that can provide some really detailed feedback to students and maintain some high level of consistency with flexible rubrics. The grades can then be exported. So if Gradescope is connected to your learning management system, you can have the grades exported back to the gradebook, or they can be exported out into a spreadsheet. And then you can get some really detailed analytics to see per question and per rubric item how the students are understanding the content that you've delivered and how they've answered those questions, as well as the students being able to view all that feedback that you've given them on the work through Gradescope as well. So up on the screen, we've got a few different examples of the types of assessments that you can deliver with Gradescope. So we've got things, or one example that we call a templated assignment, which is where you may give the students, a quiz in class, and every student would write their answer on the same area on their respective quiz. And they can be uploaded into Gradescope. The second is what we call a variable length. So this is where you might just give the students a list of questions that they have to answer. Answer questions 1 to 7 from the textbook. And then they can just go through and answer that on their own paper. So it could be, in an exercise book, lined paper, A4 paper, back of an envelope even. And then they can take a photo of that work and then upload it into Gradescope, and then it can be graded. We also support things like online assignments. So where a student would log into Gradescope and answer their questions directly through the Gradescope site. So before we jump in and have a look at the product, I've just got some feedback from some instructors in the Asia Pacific region that really speak to how Gradescope has helped them to make grading an easier process, make it more fun, but also save them a heap of time in grading. So this one here is from Tim Bell at the University of Canterbury in New Zealand. And I really like this one because it talks to, making grading fun. So he said, I think Gradescope is one of the coolest things out. It has saved me a heap of stress. I explain it to my colleagues as a gamification of exam marking. The worst part, the job made as fun as possible. We use it for all sorts of grading, and it gives me a much better sense of fairness around the process, as well as simplifying things. When more than one person is marking, it's fun to keep it's fun to track each other's progress bars, although we keep saying that it isn't a competition. So they're kind of making it a competition in, going through and grading, but not really. But, there are some features in there that kind of, if you are marking with a group of instructors, which you can do in Gradescope simultaneously, you can kind of have some fun with it or make a game out of it. Another one from a computer science instructor in India. So he said, we had a class quiz, multiple choice, earlier this Wednesday, and we had 108 submissions, each of which was 4 pages long. I just got the scans done today and was able to do the grading for 10 questions in just a little over an hour. Everything included, managing a few awkward scans, mapping the answers to the students and so forth. The classification worked out great. So, he said, even in that time that we've had to go through and maybe fix up a couple of things with the scans, maybe we scanned something in up to front or, backwards or long way up. He's, still been able to go through and grade 108 students' quizzes. That was 4 pages long in a little over an hour, which that's such a big time saving compared to having to do that on paper. So in our Gradescope demo today, so I'll go through first and show you an online assignment. So we're going to go through and as a student, submit to an online assignment. We're then going to go back through and grade that assignment. I'll also show you some grading on a paper-based assignment and some rubrics and some different examples from real instructors who use Gradescope. I'll then go through and show you the AI-assisted grading, which is another feature that can even that can help you, speed up that grading time even more. We'll have a look at the student interface for viewing graded work and the benefits for students. And then we'll also have a look at the statistics and analytics features. Alrighty, so I'm just going to jump out of my slide deck here, and I'm just going to swap over to a different screen. And we're going to go through and grade, we'll go through and submit as a student to an online quiz. So for those of you who already did this and followed the instructions that were provided, thank you so much for doing that. For those of you that haven't, no problem at all. There's quite a nice variety of answers that we've got in there as well. So I've got enough content to go through and show you the grading process on this quiz. But I'm going to jump in now and submit as a student. So this is an online quiz that we built previously, and it's an Australian geography quiz. So I'm in here as a student, and I'm going to start giving my answers to the questions. So the first question here is, what is the capital city of Australia? And this question, or the type of answer that I'm expected to give here, is what we call a short answer. So it might be 1 or 2 or 3 words. So something like this, for those who don't know, the capital city of Australia is Canberra. So I'm just going to click Save Answer there to save that response. And you can see that that's saved there at the top. And then as a student, if I need to go back through and change that answer, I can. So I can just go, no, let's just change it to Sydney. Click Save Answer. Next question here is the same type of answer that I'm looking for. What is the name of this famous Australian building? So this one here is the Sydney Opera House. As you go through, when we have a look, or when we go through and have a look at the grading process, you'll see some answers that have been marked incorrect automatically, and some of them have been marked correct automatically. So I'll show you why that may have happened for certain different types of answers there. So the next one, oh, I need to save that one. So the next question here is a mathematics question. So I need to solve for x. 2x plus 10 equals 20. And I also need to explain my thinking here. So for those who don't know, x equals 5. Then I'm going to go through and explain my thinking. So we're going to say that 2x equals 10. Divide each side by 2. X equals 5. So in a question like this, if you are familiar or your students are familiar with, say, markdown notation or LaTeX, they can also use that in here to draw nice equations. And you can also use that when you are adding in questions as well. So you can use LaTeX notation like we have in this one here. Next one, which of these countries is not part of the Asia Pacific region? So this is just a select one, or one that doesn't apply. Select Austria for that one. Which of these Australian native animals have a pouch? So I'm just going to go through and select some random ones there. So koala, kangaroo and wombat. Save answer. And then the last one we had here was a draw a picture and upload. So Gradescope quizzes can allow you to post questions like this to students, where they might go through and they can draw a picture or draw something, take a photo and then add it to their, upload it to the question. So this is really useful maybe if you're asking your students to draw, an equation or a scientific, symbols or, anything like that that might require them to, draw something, graphs. They can take a photo of that and upload it to their question there, rather than them trying to, having to draw on their screen, say with their mouse or something. We know that, that's not really the easiest way to draw something. So they can take a photo, draw it on whatever paper they've got, and then upload it into Gradescope. So for this one, I'm just going to select a file from my computer. Get my downloads. We've got this one here that I went through and drew before. So I'm just going to click Save Answer. If a student gets down to the bottom as well and they've noticed they've not saved any of their answers when they've gone through, they can just click Save Answers again, and that will save every question for them. So once they've done, they can hit Submit and View Submission. And then it's just giving them a summary of every question and the answers that they've given. With the quizzes online in Gradescope, you can add things like time limits. So you could say, students only get 60 minutes to go through and answer the quizzes there. So that's good if you're trying to emulate an exam or something like that as well. But for this one, we didn't have a time limit set on that one. If I need to go back through and change my answers there, I can go back in and hit Resubmit. Let's think that one might be Melbourne. And then I've just gone through and changed that there. So that's the student process of going through and completing a quiz. Pretty simple for them. And you've got different types of questions that you can pose to students, and then different types of answers that you would want back from them. So now that we've done that, I'm going to jump back into my instructor view here and jump into the quiz. And we're going to go through and grade some of those questions. So we can see that some of these questions have already been automatically graded for us because we've defined the answer for those in the, when we've set up the quiz. So things like, what is the capital of Australia? We've defined the answer to be Canberra. So that's why you can see that some of these have already gone through and they've been automatically marked. But we're going to go through and we'll mark 2 questions here. And they're the ones that haven't been graded yet. So this was the one where we had to solve for X, and we'll also go through and we'll grade some of the faces that have come through as well. So I'm going to click on the question number 3 here. So this was the question where we had asked the students to solve for X. And So I can see the student's answer in the middle of the page there, or on the left-hand side. And then over on the right-hand side, we have what we call our dynamic rubric. So this is where we start to build, you know, how and why we're giving students a certain amount of points for a question. So this question here is worth 3 points. So we've asked the student to solve the equation, but also explain how they got to that answer. So this question here, we are starting, we'll give them a point for the correct answer. And then we're going to go through and we'll give them 2 points for their, for explaining their thinking, depending on the level of detail that they've given for explaining that thinking. So on my rubric here, the student got the answer correct. So what I'm going to do is change this value here to be 1 point. And we're going to call it correct answer. So the student gets 1 point for getting the answer correct. And then I'm going to add in a rubric item. And we're going to say, you know, low, medium, level of detail. I might give that 1 point. And then high level detail. Yeah. So once I've done that, so we've said we'll give the student a correct 1 point for correct answer. Sorry, that needs to be 2 points. And they've given us quite a bit of detail here. So I'm going to select number 3 on the rubric. So they'll get 1 point for the correct answer, and then I'll get 1 point for the correct, or 2 points, sorry, for a high level of detail there. So what I'm going to do now is click on Next Ungraded. And the reason why we have a Next button here and a Next Ungraded is that this allows multiple markers to be in Gradescope at once, and they can kind of share the load marking the questions there. And when I click Next Ungraded, it's going to take me to the next answer in that sequence for those students who has not yet been graded. So I click Next Ungraded. Here I can see student number 2 and their response here. So student has said 5, work backwards and subtract 10 from 20. So that means 2x equals 10. Then 10 divided by 2, therefore x equals 5. So the student's got a correct answer here. So we're happy with that. And they've also given a high level of detail. Next ungraded. Okay. So this student has said x equals 5. There. So correct answer. But we're not really happy with the level of detail that they've given us to get to that answer. So here, I'm going to add in another rubric item and say no detail answer. There won't be any points to that. So that student's only going to get 1 point for that one. Next ungraded. So x equals 5. Balancing the equation, 20 minus 10 is 10. So 2x equals 10. Then divided by, then the 10 divided by 2 is 5. So x equals 5. Okay, so I'm happy with that one. Student said x equals 5. So again, we're going to give them just 1 point for correct answer there. And then if I wanted to, I could say, you know, they got 0 points added in because there was no detail, or if I didn't want to, I couldn't put that. I could choose to not add that in, but I would for this student. Any of the rubric items also have corresponding keys that you can click on the keyboard. So once you've got your kind of rubric built and set up, if you're one of those people that finds it quicker to navigate using your keyboard, you can do that. So I can just click, you know, 1 for a correct answer and then 4 for no detail. And then any of the navigation buttons down the bottom also enable you to use a keyboard shortcut. So I could click, for example, here, shortcut is Z or Z. So the students just said 5. I really wanted them to say, you know, x equals 5. So what I could do is here I could say, you know, correct answer. I could give them a specific adjustment. So I can say minus 0.5. So you can do, half points there if you want to. And then, add in a comment for that student. So to say x equals 5, for example. And click out of that box. So these items here, if they're submission specific, won't appear onto the rubric. So maybe if you've got one student that you need to give a specific comment to, and then you don't want it to have appearing on the rubric, you do have the ability to just give it for that specific student there. But you'll see if we go to the next ungraded one, this student also said 5, so I'm going to give them 1 point minus 3.5. And I can see that they've got a previous comment that I've applied, so I can just add that to that student here as well. So again, this student hasn't said x equals 5, but they've given me quite a bit of detail, so I can just go through, maybe give them 1 and then the low or medium level of detail. So I'm just going to go through and quickly grade a few more submissions here. That's the correct answer. Medium level of detail. Correct answer. Not being very consistent with that one, but I could go back through and add in a rubric item there if I wanted to. So this student's got the answer correct and provided a lot of detail. Happy. Perfect. Might give them 1 and 2 there. Perfect. So we've been able to go through in that time, and we've graded 14 students' answers. We've been pretty consistent with the grading there as well, because on my rubric on the right-hand side, I've been able to go through and I've defined, all of the, the criteria for that student, or how they would need to get up to that point value, or the total number of points there. So that's the math equation one that we did there. We'll go back now and we'll grade the faces. I like doing this one. This is a fun one because we get all different kinds of faces that people have drawn coming through. So on this one, I'm going to click on my draw a picture question here. And this one's worth 10 points here. So I'm going to, in this rubric, I've thought about it ahead of time. I'm going to go through and give students different number of points for different features that they've included on the face. And then I'll go through and I will give them some points depending on the level of detail that they've given. So for this one, they've included hair, they've included a nose, eyes, ears, and mouth. So they've done a pretty good job on this one here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some what we call rubric groups. And this is where we can group rubric items together. So I'm going to click create a group and call this facial features. So I'm going to add in, they'll get a point if they include eyes. Add in another group if they include hair. Another group for ears, nose, and 1 point for mouth. So created that group there. So I'm just going to go through and click that the student has achieved all of those there. So they'll get 5 points for that. And then I'm going to add in another group as well. I'm going to call it level of detail. So I might say this one, they get 1 if it's kind of emoji-like, 3 points if it's cartoon-like, 5 points if it's, the level of detail is, lifelike or realistic. So let's just say 1 point here. Let me say emoji-like. 3 points. And then 1 more, lifelike. Perfect. So this one, I'm going to go, this one will go cartoon-like. So they get 3 points there. next ungraded. So you can see when the students uploaded a PDF or an image, it will render directly onto the screen there. So this one here is a little bit blurry, but I can see that the student has included eyes, nose, and a mouth. So that one will open up our facial features group. So we've got eyes, nose, and mouth. Level of detail, so that one's emoji-like. But I'm actually going to add in another rubric item. I'm going to say, you know, blurry or illegible scan. And for that one, I might deduct 2 points. So anytime you're grading throughout Gradescope and using the rubrics, you can add and you can add in items to that rubric at any time you want to as well. So you don't have to build your rubric up front or in the beginning. You can kind of build it as you go throughout. You know, as you see new mistakes that students make, or you know, new things they've got correct, you can go through and add them into the rubric at any time. So we'll go to the next student submission here. So this student didn't have a submission. So I haven't added a group for that. So I'll add in a rubric item, no submission. And they'll get 0 points for that one. So this one, so they've got eyes, nose, and mouth, and level of detail, emoji-like. But I might think, oh, I want to give them at least an extra point because the student's only got 4 points. It's probably, you know, it could be worth 5. And, you know, maybe 1 point for emoji-like is a little bit harsh. So let's change that to 2 points there. So the student will get 2 points for an emoji-like drawing of a face. But with what I've done here by changing that value is that for every other student that I've applied that emoji-like value there for, it's going to now give them an extra point as well. So it'll pull them up to 2 points. So this is where, you know, one of the issues that we discussed before is that, you know, when you get towards the, you know, the end of grading and you're just rushing to get it finished, you know, you might lose some consistency in the grading, you know, not go back and, you know, if you decided now maybe, okay, I will give them 2 points for that. You know, if you were to go back through, you know, 100 students' assignments, find those students that, you know, only got 1 point there, change it to 2 points, you know, that's a really tedious, time-consuming process. And, you know, unfortunately, some markers just won't go back through and do that because they just want to get it finished. But this is where Gradescope, you know, really allows you to keep that consistency in the grading there. So for every student now that has an emoji-like drawing, they would get 2 points. And all of the previous students that drew an emoji-like drawing would also get 2 points. So we'll go through to that next ungraded one here. So the student has done a smiley face, so they've got eyes and mouth. So you can say, you know, eyes, mouth, level of detail, emoji-like. So this student's got, we'll say emoji-like again for that one. They've got eyes, they've got hair, they've got a mouth. Alrighty, so this next student, so they've got eyes, they've got hair, they've got ears, nose, mouth. They've got eyebrows as well. So, you know, let's add eyebrows to that group. Let's say our level of detail is cartoon-like. So yeah, 9 points there, well done. So this student opened or submitted a Word document. So if a student submits something like a Word document, maybe they've, you know, drawn using the review tools in Microsoft Word, something like that won't render, but you could download that and kind of mark it separately. So but we'll just go to the next ungraded one for that one. So this one, let's just say emoji-like, facial features, eyes, ears, nose, mouth. Okay, so this student hasn't uploaded a picture of a face at all. It's a very pretty drawing. I wish I could give you some points. But for that one, I'm going to say no submission. And then in the comments, I might just say you didn't upload a face. It was some flowers. So again, so we've got eyes, nose, mouth, eyebrows. Say that one is emoji-like. Alrighty, so this student has uploaded a nice face. So they've got eyes, hair, ears, nose, mouth, eyebrows, and a level of detail. That one's lifelike. Next. Cute little photo or little drawing. So we've got facial features. Again, keyboard shortcuts. So eyes, nose, mouth, and it's got hair as well. And level of detail emoji-like. So I'm not going to go through and grade the rest of them there, otherwise we might be here for a little while. But that's the process of going through and grading using a Gradescope rubric. And that was something we did for an online assignment. But the process of going through and doing and building the rubric is the same for every assignment as well. So if it's a paper-based assessment that you've uploaded that the students have given to you after class, after they've sat the quiz, building the rubric is the exact same process there as well. If the student takes a photo of their entire work and upload that as a homework or one of those variable length assignments that we showed you before. Exactly the same process of going through and building a rubric. So we'll jump back to our quiz there. And we can see that we're, 84% graded there. But I'll just need to go through and finish off my question 3 and my question 6 there to go through and finish off that grading process. But now we'll have a look at another assessment, and we'll have a look at a paper-based quiz, and we'll go through and we'll grade that. So I'm just going to jump into another course here. So this is a paper-based assessment that we delivered in class, or in this example, delivered in class. So the students, got 60 minutes to sit this quiz in class. All the students went through and wrote their answers. And then at the end of the class, the teacher went around and collected the quizzes. So then they were scanned and uploaded Gradescope in bulk. And Gradescope went through and split each student submission up into their respective submissions. And we have features such as artificial intelligence and machine learning help with that process as well. So you can read the student's name on the top of the quiz and assign it to the correct student in Gradescope. But we'll go through and we'll mark a question here first. So I'm going to click on my integral question. So this is a calculus question. What is the integral of x? And here the correct answer is 1/2 x squared plus c. So as we go through and grade this question, I want you to just take note of that there's 3 different parts to this question: the half, the x squared, and then the plus c. So this question here is out of a total of 3 points. And compared to before, when we were grading, starting at 0 and then adding a point on for each thing the student got right, in this question here, we're actually going to deduct a point for each mistake that a student makes. So you can do a combination of those on the same rubric as well. So, as we saw when I marked the faces, I took off 2 points because it was a blurry scan or, not really legible. So you can do a positive scoring, a negative scoring, or both on the same rubric. But for this student here, they got the answer correct. So I'm just going to select 1 on my keyboard and click Z to go to next. So this student made a mistake. They are missing the half. So I'm going to add in a rubric item. And we'll deduct 1 point there. We'll say missing half. And again, with your rubric items there, you've got things like LaTeX notation, markdown. You can bold or italicize anything. And you can also add in an image there to the rubric as well. which is useful, say, for example, if you've asked a student to maybe draw, a cell, and they would need to include all the little, things like mitochondria and the cell wall and things like that. You could upload different pictures of what they look like on the rubric. So I'll apply that rubric item there. So we'll deduct 1 point for that student for the missing half, and then get 2 out of 3 points. For things like the paper-based assessments here, you can also annotate answers there as well. So you could draw in, if you wanted to, a half. So you just click the pencil at the top here, and then write in the half there. So I'm going to get to next ungraded answer. So the student got the answer correct, so we'll just select 1 on my rubric. The student made a different kind of answer, so they're missing the plus C. So we'll add in a rubric item there, say, minus 2 points for that one. Missing plus C. And I'll add in a text notation there as well. So click on the T at the top, and click where I want that note to go. Next ungraded. So this student here made 2 types of mistakes. So they're missing the half, and they're also missing the plus C as well. So because we took off 1 point for missing the half and 2 points for missing the plus C, you can see that they now only get, or they've got 0 points there as well. But as I mentioned before, when we were going through and grading, at any time, you can change any of the rubric items. So I might think, oh, this is really harsh to give the student 0 points here. I might want to at least give them, a partial credit there. So I can go back through and change that rubric item. So it's now only worth minus 1 point. And again, it's gone back through, and for the any other student that had that rubric item applied to them, it's now only deducting 1 point. So we'll go through to the next student. Blank answer, so we'll say blank, no answer, and deduct 3 points. So the student was correct. Plus C. So once I've now kind of built out my rubric item to have, most of the mistakes that students are making, it's pretty quick for me to go through and grade. So we'll grade 15 students here as we go through. C. So the student said C extra page at end. So if a student does something like this, maybe they've got some scrap paper at the end, I can just click on all pages. So that was page 1 and 2 was from the quiz. So we'll go to page 3. Question 1, so yep, they've got it correct. Awesome. So in that time, we've been able to go through and grade 15 students there, which we've done that pretty quick. So the same process there as building the rubric as we did with the online quiz, except we're just doing it for that paper-based quiz here now. So that's the manual way of grading with Gradescope. But what I'll do now is I'll show you the artificial intelligence features that can really help speed up the grading process. And we call it AI-assisted grouping. So I'm going to jump back into another quiz, and we're going to grade that same question, but we'll use the grouping features to do that. So click on integral here. At the top, I'm going to set the question type. So this is just telling Gradescope what type of answer or response have the students given. So when you're grading, as I showed you before, we graded individually, but for this one, we'll go through and we'll group some answers. So I can do things like just group every student that gave a blank answer together, and then we'll grade them once, and then we'll go through and we'll manually grade everyone else. You've got things like multiple choice, where a student might need to shade in a bubble or tick a square or something like that. A math fill in the blank, which is what we'll use today. So this is, where the students will just write maybe a short math answer. or we've got a text fill in the blank. And this is useful for things that maybe require a 1 or a 2 word answer. So things like, what is the capital of Victoria? And the student would write Melbourne. For this one, we'll do a math fill in the blank here. So I'll click save. So then the Gradescope artificial intelligence is going to go through and it will try and find every student that's given the same answer there and place them into a group together. So we can see for this group here, there was 5 students that gave the answer a half x squared, 4 students that gave the answer x squared, 3 students that gave the answer x squared plus c, 4 students that gave the correct half x squared plus c, and then there was 2 students that were blank. So the artificial intelligence will go through and do that automatically for you. So after you've done that, you just need to give that human element there and just confirm that every answer belongs in that group. So they're all correct answers there that belong, all answers that are all the same in that group. So that's fine. So I can confirm x squared, confirm. If I need to take an answer out of that group, I can just click on it or hover over it and click space on my keyboard. But they're okay. Half x squared group plus c, yep, fine. And then the blank group there, so that was fine. So then there were some answers that Gradescope just couldn't confidently place in a group there. So I can now place these into a group if I want. So this question mark, that's essentially the same as a blank. So let's just drag that into our blank group. X squared plus c, we've got a group for that already, so we'll add that in there. And then we've got this one student who wrote C extra page at end. So we'll just leave him by himself. So once I've done that, click on grade answers and then click continue grading. So now I can go through and I can grade my groups. So I can see my first group here is the half x squared group, and there was 5 submissions in that group. So we'll go through and we'll build out our rubric item. So this group was missing plus C. So if that one, we'll deduct 1 point. This group's missing the half. So we'll deduct for that one. This group's missing the half and the plus C. So you can already see we've graded 13 students. So that group was blank. So we'll deduct 3 for that one. Sorry, click the wrong button there. This was a student that said C extra page at end. So again, if I did have something like that when we were using the grouping, I can still go back and have a look at that answer there. So correct. And then I've got my last group of students there who gave a correct answer there as well. So in that time that we've gone through and graded, we've been able to grade 20 students in probably half the time it took us to grade 15 before. Now I've only got a small sample size here, so my end number is not really that big. But if you can, scale this up in your classes, 50 students, 100 students. One of the biggest courses we have in Gradescope, there's about over 2,000 students in that. It's an introduction to chemistry class at a university in the US. So, you can imagine scaling that up to, 2,000 students, just simply by grouping all of the students together that have given that same answer. You can save a heap of time in that grading process. So that's the AI assisted grouping feature there. So before we move on and have a look at the statistics, and I can show you what that looks like and what the students will see as well. I just wanted to show you some examples of real rubrics that have been used by instructors in Gradescope. So in this example here, it was a computer science project that had been delivered, or that the students had to answer the questions on paper. And this was an example of a rubric that an instructor built out there. Gradescope also supports things like programming. So students can upload code to Gradescope and they can be automatically graded using an auto grader, or you can also go through it and grade manually, or a combination of both. Things like physics, where students might have to write out some really complex equations. Chemistry, where students might be drawing diagrams. You can even use it for things like, in a biology quiz where you might ask students to explain a concept, or, maybe write a short paragraph there about an answer. So that's an example of a rubric there. Things like engineering, again, students drawing diagrams. And as I mentioned before, you can have both positive and negative on the rubric there as well. And even for things like economics there as well, where students might have to, draw some graphs that are a bit more complex and label them. So those are some examples of real life rubrics that have been built into Gradescope for some of those instructors. But we'll jump back into Gradescope now, and we'll have a look at the student submission, or the student process of viewing feedback there. So I'm just going to jump again back into another quiz here. Go back home. And I've got that. Sorry. Sorry, wrong one. Too many courses. Yeah. So after I've gone through and finished grading, as an instructor, I can come through to my review grades menu on the left-hand side, and I can see some basic information here. So I can see, what each student got as their score, has their assignment yet been graded, and some basic statistics there at the top as well. I can also choose to publish grades. So if I click on that publish grades button, that would allow the students to then log into gradescope.com, and they would be able to see the feedback that you've left them there. I can also export out the student submissions as well with the answers they've given for each question. Export out some rubrics, or the marked rubrics for each question. Download the grades for each student just into a spreadsheet. And then if Gradescope is linked to your learning management system, you can also choose to publish the grades back to the LMS gradebook as well. So if you're using something like Canvas or Moodle, you wouldn't need to transpose those grades from Gradescope back into the gradebook. That process can happen automatically for you there as well. So we'll have a look quickly at what that looks like as a student before we dive into the deeper statistics. So I'm back in my student view here. We'll go into an assignment. It's been graded. So I can see my exam or my quiz here. And I can see that I got, as a student, I can see that I got 9 out of 13 points there. So I'll click graded there. So I can see my example submission, or the submission, that I wrote on, that I gave back to the teacher. And then over on the right-hand side, I can see what I got for each question there. So for that integral question, I got 2 out of 3 points. And if I click on integral there, I can see why I got that, that score there. So we can see that I had a point deducted because I was missing that constant at the end, or the plus C. Similar to something like the derivative question there, which was a separate question. I can also see that I got minus 1 point because I was missing a negative symbol. Students can also request a regrade if you've allowed them to as well. So, if you're allowing your students to see the rubric items, they will generally kind of get a good understanding of, why they got that answer there. But, if they would like some more information, or, they think that they shouldn't have got that point or that score, they can request a regrade as well. So I can click request regrade. I should have received full points because, you know, X, Y, Z. And click on request regrade. So they can see that it's been submitted. If I jump back into Gradescope, as an instructor, I can click on that regrade request button there. And I can see all of those regrade requests that have come through. So if one of them had come through, I can click review. This was a different one we've done earlier, but you know, as a teacher, we'd be able to see that request there, and then I could respond to that. And if I wanted to update the score for that student on the rubric. So that's a really good feature that can kind of, if you are interested in using that, help you streamline that regrade process there. But we'll have a look at some statistics now as well. So with Gradescope, because the way that we grade is really in-depth and detailed, it allows you to get some really good statistics from each of the questions and the responses that the students are given. So if we click statistics here on the left-hand side, we're able to see some basic statistics for each question, the mean for each question. But then I get a breakdown here as well. So we can see for the integral question, the mean for that question there was 55%. But if I click on that question, it will then give me a further breakdown of how the students went. So we can see that 20% of the students got the answer correct. 40% of the students were missing the half. 45% were missing the constant. And then 15% of my students were missing, did not give a response there. So we can see that, 80% of my students here did not get full marks or got, less than 3 points. So, then I can go back and say, do I need to deliver another lesson on integrals? Or, is there students that I might need to focus on? So I can click on, the students that were missing the half. And then it gives me a list of all those students there that missed the half. And then I might be able to do a quick mini lesson, 5-10 minutes with them about, the correct way to complete an integral question. You also have the ability to tag questions in Gradescope as well. So this is one of my favorite parts with the statistics because it allows you to kind of see, are there patterns occurring? So I might go through and tag these questions every time, tag every question that we delivered in lecture number 2, for example. And then once I've gone through and added a tag to the question, it's as easy as just clicking on it and typing in lecture 2. Any of the other tags you've already created will already be there for you as well. But then if I scroll back up to the top, I can click show tags. So I can see that in, say, let's have a look at lecture 1, the mean there was only 52%. So that was in fact the lowest there. So we can maybe then have a look at what happened in lecture 1. Was that the first week that we went to online learning and lesson delivery? So we might have had issues with Zoom or something like that. Did I have a guest lecturer who delivered that content and maybe they didn't deliver it in the way that I had hoped them to? Or it could even be, comparing lecture 1 to lecture 2. Did I get a whole new group of students that came to lecture 2 that didn't come to lecture 1 or weren't enrolled at that time? So maybe they didn't learn or grasp that content there. So that's how you can tag questions and then really start to get some, see if patterns are occurring that you might need to address with students. So the statistics and the analytics are very powerful and can give you some really good in-depth insight into how students are performing in areas that might need some improvement. Perfect. So we'll jump back to our course here. So that is a quick overview of Gradescope and the power that it has to not only improve the time, but also help grading become more consistent, as well as trying to make it a bit more fun or a bit more pleasurable to go through and grade there. So just jump back to my slide deck. I'll open it up now. If anyone does have any questions or any further questions, please add them into the chat. But I can see that everyone has been going through and asking a lot of questions. But Michael, Jess or Suji, is there anything else or any questions that I should address in Gradescope? I don't think so. Sorry, Jess, did you have something?
No, you're right. I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah, I think we've got everything under control. Thank you. Awesome. No worries. Alrighty. Well, so yeah, if you do have any questions, please feel free to add them into the Q&A while we continue on. But we will wrap it up here. So just as a reminder, if you would like to create an account in Gradescope, you can do that. Just go to the gradescope.com website to create that account. Again, if your institution already has purchased Gradescope and you're integrating with your learning management system, that process has already been done for you, so you won't need to create that account. If you do have any questions after the session today, please feel free to go to the help section on the Gradescope website, so help.gradescope.com, or please feel free to reach out to Jess and the customer happiness team. So again, just email those at help@gradescope.com. And if you are looking for a more in-depth overview of Gradescope, please feel free to follow that link that Michael posted in the chat before and register for one of our upcoming webinars. And just as a reminder, we host those at 2 p.m. on a Thursday, Melbourne or Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Perfect. So thank you everybody so much for joining the session today. Again, I know it was nice and early on a Monday morning, so I do appreciate everyone attending. So we'll stay on for a little bit longer just to answer any other questions that come through. Otherwise, please feel free to sign off and enjoy the rest of the conference over today and tomorrow. And yes, so very early in Perth. Well, it'll be 7:30 in the morning at the moment. So yeah, thank you so much for joining bright and early. But yeah, thanks to everyone who's popping the thank yous into the Q&A. I appreciate it. Alrighty, so we might finish it there. So again, thank you everybody for joining and enjoy the rest of the conference.